Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a packed house this evening. So tonight is the City Council meeting and public hearing for May the 4th, 2026 for the City of Alpharetta. Thank you all for joining us. And just a little housekeeping here. In case you're here for two of these items, there were two items that have been pulled by the applicants, and they will not be heard tonight, so you might have saved yourself a little bit of time. And first is the ordinance for the alcohol ordinance text amendments. That won't be heard this evening. And the ordinance for the offenses and miscellaneous provisions ordinance text amendments. If you were here for either of those items, you'll just have to come back the next time we do take those issues up. I want to note for the record, we do have all members of council present and accounted for. And as always, we begin our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're willing and able, please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll start off this meeting with a couple of presentations and proclamations. First will be the proclamation for the Alpharetta High School indoor percussion team. So, if everyone involved in this, especially band members and band leaders, if you'll meet me right down front here, we'll do your proclamation. By allowing some of the people that actually did this stuff to talk about what you've done. So I'll hand the mic off to you to begin with.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Manson. I'm the band director at Alpharetta High School. Our percussion team recently went to Dayton, Ohio to compete in world championships. And out of a field of 96 other teams in the Scholastic A class, Alpharetta High School was crowned world champions for the entire event. I'd like to recognize this is Mr. Jared Kaufman. He's the assistant band director at Alpharetta High School. This is Mr. Matthew Howell, who's our percussion coordinator and director and the mastermind of all things that was our percussion section for this past year. This is Koa Griffin. He was our center snare player and captain this year, along with Maddie Good, who is also a captain, and she was a 4-year band member with us. She's about to graduate. Maddie is also the valedictorian of Alpharetta High School this year and will be continuing her education at Princeton University. Would you guys like to say anything you want to say?
Yeah, sure, I'll go for it. Hey, I'm Koa Griffin. This has just been such an amazing opportunity and experience for me, and I know for all of these guys. There's just been so much, and the seniors can speak about this even more. There's just been so much that has led up to this, so much work from so many people, and seeing all of that come together in this one big pivotal moment was such a cathartic experience for me, and I'm for many, many other people. So very grateful to you guys, to everyone here. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think Koa summed it up pretty well. But again, I'm a senior, so I'm graduating. So really, for the last chance to get to leave my mark on this program, and for all our seniors to get to leave our mark in our 4 years of hard work and dedication, it was truly the best result we could have hoped for. So again, thank you guys, everyone, for having such a great season and such a great team to be a part of.
And behind every great band program, there are great parents. And we could not have done this without the army of parents that are always there to support us. I think some of us know more than others how much it is important for parents to really be supportive of this activity and how much the students can gain from it. And we want to just thank our parents and our supporters for it, and our administration at Alpharetta High School, because they are phenomenally supportive of our group. Thank you all.
So, in recognition of y'all's excellence, I've got a proclamation. And because I'm old, I have to have readers to read these fonts. So this is a proclamation by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, recognizing the Alpharetta High School Indoor Percussion Ensemble for winning the 2026 Winter Guard International World Championship. Whereas the Alpharetta High School Indoor Percussion Ensemble, made up of 36 dedicated student musicians, invested countless hours in rehearsals and performances throughout the 2026 season, consistently demonstrating commitment, talent, and pride in representing their school and community. And whereas, in their first ever appearance at the Winter Guard International World Championship in Dayton, Ohio, the ensemble delivered an exceptional preliminary performance, finishing with the highest score of the day and establishing a strong lead over the national field. And whereas the ensemble continued to excel through semifinals and finals, ultimately earning a final score of 97.850, one of the highest in class history, and securing first place and the title of 2026 WGI Scholastic A World Champions, marking a historic achievement for the Alpharetta High School and state of Georgia. And whereas this outstanding accomplishment reflects the dedication of the students, the leadership of their instructional staff and designers, and the support of the Alpharetta Band Boosters, the Alpharetta High School community, and school administration, all of whom contributed to the ensemble's success. Bless you. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Alpharetta, proudly recognize and commend the Alpharetta High School Indoor Percussion Ensemble for their remarkable national debut and world championship title, and for representing the city of Alpharetta with excellence and integrity. So proclaimed this 4th day of May, 2026, by the mayor and the city council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia. Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations, Pam. Now, if Chris Randall would come forward, I believe I saw her up. Pete. We also have another proclamation, some outstanding work from the City of Alpharetta employees in the Public Works Department. So, Pete, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, on behalf of the Public Works Department, thank everybody for everything they've done for us, from Mayor and Council with the funding, for the citizens for all the great comments, especially during the storm events. It's probably the most taxing challenge that we deal with. We have everyone else staying home, playing in the snow with their kids, and our coworkers coming in to help out, clear the roads, and do it safely. And thank you all.
Thank you, Pete. So I'll read this proclamation on behalf of the City of Alpharetta. This is a proclamation by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia. Public Works Week is May 17th through 23rd, 2026. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and also to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Alpharetta. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, and responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, our water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities that are essential for citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for our residents, business professionals, and visitors to the City of Alpharetta to gain knowledge of and to maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas this year's Public Works Week, with the theme Rooted in Service, Powered by Community, marks the 66th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby proclaim May 17th through 23rd, 2026 to be Public Works Week in the City of Alpharetta, and urge all our citizens to join the representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our health, our safety, and our quality of life. So proclaimed this 4th day of May, 2026, by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia. So the next item up on our agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the City Council meeting minutes from the meeting of April 27th, 2026. Ms. Orhusky, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item?
We have no comment cards.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now's your chance to do so. Is there anything that would like to be removed from this agenda by City Council? I see no one indicating they would like to remove anything from the consent agenda. So if we have no public comment, do I have a motion from council?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Reeves and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So we will move right along to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. Ms. Eswine, I believe you were going to give the public hearing procedures.
An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of the hearing must be recognized by the mayor before addressing the city council. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself or herself and furnish a home or business address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. The council will allow proponents a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. Opponents will be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comments or presentations, the mayor will allow the applicant to offer rebuttal if any time is remaining in the originally allotted 10 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Director Cook, I believe you have this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first item before you, you can see that on the aerial map, and it's a property that's located within the Brookside Master Plan. The request, if approved, would allow for the redevelopment of a 5-story, 130,000 square foot office building to allow 104 for-sale townhomes on approximately 8.76 acres located within the Brookside Master Plan. And let me put the site plan up. And just to orient you, of course, the property is located to the west. That is the Portman mixed-use development that was approved last year. The property that's located to the south, these two buildings are actually the Georgia State campus. And then the property to the north, this is it's a restaurant that's currently closed, but was just purchased, but that is a commercial parcel. And the property that's located to the east, that's the Mansions, which is age-restricted assisted living. Let me put the site plan up here. So here's a blow-up of the plan. Again, this is within Pod A. Pod A is a larger 86-acre pod within the Brookside Master Plan. Brookside Master Plan was approved back in 1997, and residential uses were not permitted at that time. The residential density in Pod A is 6.13 dwelling units per acre, which includes the property that was previously approved that's located to the west, the mixed use, and the request, since it's both under contract or owned by Portman, is to be for a zoning of mixed use. There's also a request to change the future land use from corporate office to mixed use. When we went through back in 2022 and we adopted the Brookside Small Area Plan, we did promote a change of uses, but we didn't specify what those uses would be. We did have a plan that we put together after talking to several surrounding HOAs. They wanted to see a more walkable Brookside. And of course, we started down that path in 2022 because within the comp plan, this area was identified as one of the priority areas for redevelopment. So that's why you're seeing this request this evening. A conditional use is also required if they're requesting the mixed use for a dwelling for sale attached use. And the variances that are requested are to reduce the minimum required office. Again, when you have something that was zoned in 1997, 155 acres, we weren't looking at mixed-use development at that time. So when we go through and we look at different parcels within the Brookside Master Plan and they're redeveloped, we're going to probably have some variances that are requested as part of that program. And I'll show you the overall Brookside Master Plan. Although we're looking at this area here, which is A, and they're requesting a variance to the required office, there is 46 other acres within the master plan that has office development. So that wasn't something you'll see that when staff is recommending approval of that, that's because that acreage for office exists and it's built throughout the rest of Brookside. Another reason that we were looking at this property back in 2022 is at that time it had the highest vacancy for office in Alpharetta. Again, another reason why we went through the outreach. We didn't change the future land use, but we did come up with different opportunities, such as a pedestrian loop system, and this is the property we're looking at right here, an open space network, traffic calming, intersection enhancements, and of course, improvements to the 30-acre park that exists within Brookside. Some of the outreach that we had with surrounding HOAs, we asked them, how would you use the Brookside trails more? What improvements could be made so that you would either come across the street, if it was Pembroke that we spoke to, or Park Brook or Glen Abbey. And unanimously, they said improvements to the park, because a lot of that park right now is in floodplain and needs improvements. And then they were also looking for those trails to be lit and cleared, just more accessible trails. So some of the recommendations that we have with this approval is taking impact fees that would be charged to this development if it's approved and working on those improvements within that list. That's something that Portman will be doing as part of their improvements to make sure that there's improvements to that park. So if we are putting and approving people to live in this area, that it is a place that they want to live. I already spoke about the comp plan. The comp plan had identified this area as priority for redevelopment, and we have several different goals within our 2021 comp plan that talk about redevelopment of suburban office park for a more walkable development. That doesn't mean that's everywhere in the city. That's why we went forward with a small area plan specifically for the Brookside area. Also, as part of the Brookside area plan, we did look at a future improvement to the roadway. Currently, the roadway is 4 lanes. We went through a preliminary traffic study that showed, based on the traffic that exists, that 2 lanes could be eliminated for a lane diet in order to add what the residents had spoke about, better bike lanes and pedestrian paths. So in the future, that would be a city project, but you'll see conditions, if this is approved, that would set back areas needed to accommodate the future improvements. Unified Development Code parking regulations require 1 parking space for each bedroom in a townhome unit, as well as 18-foot long driveways. They do meet all of those requirements. The required parking is 312 parking spaces. They have 416. They also have additional 24 spaces for guest parking. They also meet the requirements for the open space requirement. Open space includes civic space, which is more public space, as well as private space, which is people's yards, balconies, those type of uses. And you can see here, they have 3 different pocket parks. It's located, one on the southern corner, one at the northern corner, as well as the pocket park with a pool, cabana, and then the mail kiosk. They're also showing the development gated. The gate it's farther back so they don't impede the shared access they have with the mansions next door. They also submitted rendering, traditional majority brick and siding. And we also asked them to provide us what a side elevation would look like if it's abutting Brookside. And just to remind you what the Portman mixed-use Brookside Village development looks like, it's very similar. They went with the same, very typical, the brick matches, very traditional, shouldn't say typical, but traditional brick to match what was approved. We also looked at traffic. The applicant submitted a trip generation report which estimates that the 104 townhomes will generate 46 AM peak hour trips and 51 PM peak hour trips, which we show as a 79% decrease in AM and peak, of course, at full capacity of the office building. Right now, it's about 16% occupied. We also reached out to Fulton County Schools, and they did provide us, based on the total figure for all schools, it can be assumed that the proposed development could house approximately 6 to 51 school-aged children, and the new Prospect Elementary School and Alpharetta High School have available enrollment capacity. However, Webbridge Middle School is over capacity. And then we also looked at the standards for the comp plan land use amendments, and specifically, I'll just mention number 1, the extent to which a change in the economy, land use, or development opportunities of the area has occurred. And we found that looking at the 2040 comprehensive plan, it identifies Old Milton Parkway east of Georgia 400 as a priority area in need of redevelopment, and promotes the retrofitting and mixed-use patterns to create activity nodes. And we brought this to the Planning Commission. It was heard at the Planning Commission April 23rd. There were no public comments, and after discussion, the commission recommended approval subject to the staff recommended condition, and that was a unanimous vote, 7-0. And we are recommending 28 different conditions if it's approved, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions for Director Cook? Councilwoman Reeves.
Said 46 of the townhomes, no more than 46 would be 18 feet wide.
Correct.
And what is the code? Is it 20 that they?
So within within the mixed use, it doesn't have a minimum. So at one time, they were going forward with the R10M, which did have a maximum of 18 feet. The MU zoning district does not have a minimum. I said maximum, but minimum.
That I recall, there's been some issues with the 16, the 18 feet across in terms of the driveways fitting 2 cars, and then that ends up taking the side parking, and
Yeah,
that has
and
ended up as an issue that is recurring with our 3-story townhomes.
And the 18 it works for us, and I know that the issue that you're talking about, and it was a big issue, but it was because of the way it was graded. When they built the garage, they ended up having to put 2 stairs into the garage, which took the area, the length, because the first floor was elevated, so it was supposed to be at grade, and the steps coming into the garage took the area. So the 18 in the width was fine. It was the length for that particular case. But yes, we fixed the code to make sure that that didn't occur in the future.
Taking the 4 lanes and reducing it to 2, I know there's not a lot of traffic around that loop right now, but if we're putting redevelopment on there as we are, it seems like maybe that might be short-sighted to go from 4 lanes to 2. And then along that same vein, regarding the sidewalks, there's been some discussion about the sidewalks in the other part of Brookside. And I would think that any developer that would come in, we would want to at least require the types of sidewalks that we're looking at spending taxpayer dollar on.
Yes, so there is a condition, if it's approved, that they would maintain a 6-foot beauty strip as well as an 8-foot sidewalk. And that's a good point with the lane diet. As you know, there's something that we originally had for North Point. We had a development that's pending, so we may not be going forward with the lane diet. That's another something that we'll look at also for Brookside, because if Georgia State adds additional office buildings and increases their offerings, that may not be something that we go forward with in the future. But we'll still have the 8-foot sidewalks, so they would still build the sidewalks that we need.
And would we build the sidewalks, or would they?
They're going to build the sidewalks, but they're not going to take out a lane.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I would think not, yeah.
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
take
yeah, yeah.
a lot more discussion than that.
Yes,
That would take a
because-
lot more
yeah.
discussion than that. Thank you.
Councilman Brady?
Thank you, Kathy. I know it's been a long road, so thank you so much for all your work on this project in this area, because it has been going on for a while. Do you mind putting up just the renderings real quick and just the conformity to Portman? And I'm looking at some of the renderings, and I'm always going to look at the quality and make sure it
Sure.
represents the quality of Alpharetta and what we want in Alpharetta. I'll be honest, I was expecting something. Okay, that's not the same picture you had a minute ago. So I don't know what picture I saw a minute ago, but it's totally different.
Let me see.
I guess we're talking mostly unpainted brick, right, was the substantial material that's going to be used on the exterior. I think the one you just showed a minute ago is only a face brick with siding on the side. There you go. Is that the correct one? Because that's a big
This one.
difference. That's
Yeah.
a big, big.
And this still has it, so you can see the slope roof here, which is this part. It's just the way it's rendered. This is the, by machine, and then this exists.
Yep. So the first one you're showing is Portman, and the second one is the applicant.
And this is the Portman.
Okay.
Because we wanted to make sure that it was still similar and the bricks were complementary.
That looks great. Portman looks great. The second one here, I'm worried about take this one here that's shown right here. See the siding on the side? That's not primarily brick, right? But brick, you're saying, is the material that's going to have the prominent use.
Yeah, and it could be conditioned to where at the ends, at least for the units that are fronting Brookside and visible from Brookside, that the end could be all brick.
Okay. I'll be honest, I was expecting a better design. But, thank
And there
you.
is a condition too that's not, it hasn't been reflected here. We actually have a condition, let me see where it is.
It just looks totally different at Portman. I mean, I know they're supposed to be different. I know they're across the road from each other, but one is a lot better than what we're looking at here. That looks great. The other one does not, let's be honest.
So on
Just my own reaction to it, so.
On number 5, and I agree with what you're saying, because on number 5, we added, architecture shall be substantially similar, except that front entries along Brookside Parkway shall be recessed with pronounced covered porches. And the reason that we put that in is because how pronounced, the Brookside architecture was, and that's kind of what we want to see, just a more prominent entries.
I'm just worried about some of the, I guess the reason why I'm voicing this is that it looks like that could age very fast and deteriorate very quick based upon sun and all the elements that will hit it there. And I'm looking for a timeless product that would be out there. The first one from Portman looks like it would stand the test of time. And this product, I'm worried about conditions in 10, 15, 20 years, what it look like. So that's just my comment, but.
Right, and this is approved by staff. You could also, if you wanted to, change that to DRB, if that's something that you want to see.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dorito?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to focus on the removal of the office space. Not necessarily opposed to this project, but I think for the public to understand the capacity of office space that we have in the Brookside master plan today, from the 97 master plan development of making it an office park. Between this and other applications we've had, compared to what office space was there, how much is, if we were to approve this, how much office space is being removed from Brookside?
At Brookside, so this would be a total of 260,000 square feet. And so Brookside has close to 1 million square feet that's developed, and that includes the Georgia State campus. So this, if you add the, I apologize, it's 300. Let me see.
On this office building?
It'd be a total of 360,000 square feet of removal if this is approved throughout Brookside. That's with 3 different projects. But on
That's
this
the
one, it's
total,
130.
Out of 1 million, you said 1 million?
Yes,
1 million square feet?
yes, it's 909, I think is the number, square feet. Let me see.
Okay.
It's close to 1 million.
The reason I bring this up is because we're getting a lot of, at least I'm hearing it, I'm sure my fellow members of the council are hearing this too, about, you know, the townhome development, right? Throughout the city, the amount of applications we're getting to convert office space to, you know, put high-density townhomes, blah, 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 blah. And can you explain why this concept here, application before us, is contributing to the overall plan of Brookside as far as how the city is envisioning this area to be converted without removing all the office space, hopefully enhancing Georgia State's campus, opening up that city park that really is inaccessible today. I just think it's important to understand, like, we might be considering the approval of this townhouse development, but the benefit to what we're trying to contribute in the new Brookside area to revitalize that area. Does that make sense?
It does, 100%. And I think it is important, you know, that all suburban office parks in Alpharetta are not the same. You know, we have to look at them each, and each request that comes forward, we have to look at it on its own merits. And with Brookside, it was more of a deliberate, small area plan that we put together because we knew how important the Georgia State campus was to the city, to the region, the city also, but also because we knew we had the 30-acre park. Is it a place that's a good place for people to live? And so we had all these different amenities that would be a nice place for people to live. I mean, you know, we see all the time, council doesn't see it, but we see it in the office, and it doesn't make it very far, where it's just, you know, putting townhomes in a parking lot. But it's not a good place for people to live, and it's not a priority area for us to try to create something that's walkable and supports the fantastic uses that we have. It's also important, too, with the Georgia State campus, and, you know, we've had several meetings with them, hoping that they have additional offerings. They told us we need something, you know, for students to walk to. So that's when the Portman was approved with the retail. They also, with Portman having the mixed use and retail, you need people there at all times to support that mixed use that's been approved to the west. So it was always, you know, it started with the comp plan and the residents telling us that this is a priority, having those meetings with the HOA. So it's been in a process since 2021 to see how we could move and make it better. And I think that may
No, that's
somewhat
good.
answer.
I appreciate it. I wanted it to come from staff because I think you guys have worked really hard on this, so.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves?
I'm glad Councilman Dorito brought that up because why here and not somewhere else? And you've mentioned that the work has been in this node, in this area, since 21. You know, originally, all the density in Alpharetta, when it was, you know, sort of designed for modern Alpharetta, all the density was planned to be between West Side and North Point and Windward Parkway and Manziel. This is a different area. It has Georgia State here. It was significantly vacant, and I think that those are a couple, and it does have the Greenway Park right next to it. I think there are some unique things. I think we're probably going to see lots and lots of applications try to say they're the same thing, and they're not. And I don't think crossing, unless changes are completely made, pretty familiar with the area. I don't see a lot of people crossing Old Milton Parkway, certainly while it's under construction. So I do want to echo that this is absolutely a little bit different, because there's going to be people that look at this and go, more townhomes. And that's a valid point, because density of this type was not intended to be this far east. And typically is not. It's not on Kimball Bridge, and it's not on Webb Bridge, and typically not on Windward Parkway. So I think we have to be very careful moving forward, and I appreciate the time and effort put into creating the conditions.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Director. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time? Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Can y'all hear me? Not yet.
There we go, that's better. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name's Alex Brock with Smith Gambrell Russell. Office address is 1105 West Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia. I am here representing the Providence Group of Georgia for their application for the development of the property on Brookside Parkway. Director Cook gave a pretty thorough overview and touched on some of the points that I wanted to mention tonight, so I'll keep my presentation brief and reiterate a few zoning points, and then turn it over to Mr. Warren Jolly with the Providence Group to go through the development specifics itself. The subject property is currently developed with a 5-story, 130,000 square foot office building that's approximately 84% vacant at this time, which is not uncommon for the Brookside area, and it's not uncommon for the region or the country as a whole. Since the COVID pandemic, non-Class A office has suffered a dramatic downturn in occupancy rates and led to a number of offices being redeveloped. As a result, at the Brookside development, or at Brookside, you often see empty spaces, little pedestrian activity along the sidewalks, and is usually unactivated during the day. What the Providence Group seeks to do is to redevelop the subject property with 104 townhome units, which would, in a gated community, which would add a residential component into the area, thus activating both pedestrian connectivity along with Portman's mixed-use project across Brookside Parkway, as well as the Brookside area in general. This is in line with the city's goals set out in the comp plan for areas east of 400, as well as the Brookside Small Area Plan to redevelop aging suburban office into walkable mixed use, as Director Cook had mentioned. In fact, the Horizon 2040 Comprehensive Plan identifies Old Milton Parkway east of Georgia 400 as a priority area in need of redevelopment and promotes retrofitting, repurposing, and mixed-use patterns to create activity nodes near or within existing suburban office parks. The proposed development is directly in line with those goals that the city has set forth for redevelopment in the area. To facilitate the development, we are asking for 2 variances. One is to reduce the 50-foot buffer, undisturbed buffer, to a 15-foot planted buffer. And those are along the eastern property lines that is adjacent to the senior housing, and the northern property line that faces the commercial uses to the north. We are also asking for a reduction of the office institutional use from 25% to 17%, and that is something that Director Cook had explained. Staff has recommended approval of the application. The City of Alpharetta Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions at its April 23rd meeting. We are asking this body to follow suit and recommend approval with staff's conditions as well. We are in agreement with the conditions that are before this board tonight and respectfully ask for your vote of approval. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Warren Jolly to speak about the development itself. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, council, I'm Warren Jolly, president of the Providence Group of Georgia. Want to, Fergal, just to kind of get to some of the architectural questions that you brought up. Obviously, the Portman development is a multifamily development, and the plate heights are different, ceiling heights are different than a multifamily, than a residential townhome development. We picked this project because and this wasn't something like thrown together overnight. We worked hard on it, but a couple of these buildings I can show you were built in downtown Norcross in the historic districts. There are historic buildings, plate height, ceiling heights, windows. We do have a condition that the architecture to be four-sided, and also, and that mainly is brick. So the rendering that you saw, it was part of the application, and it's kind of developed from these conditions now. But that's not our intention to build. It's more what you have here. And like always, we don't know what the preference of the council or the staff is. So we submit it, and then we'll work through the process of getting the zoning. But what was unique about these buildings that we thought, in the widths of them being different widths, is that most townhome buildings, they pretty much all look the same. They all stagger the same. They're about the same width. And these are different widths to have porches, to have copper roofs between the two that are put together. We think the streetscape, we always face the exteriors out. We think the streetscape could really be great with, I think Kathy talked about, matching brick colors of Portman and, looking more like Boston-type row houses with gates and iron rails. So that's what the plan is for them to look at. Really, we've had the blessing of going through 2 planning commission hearings and working with staff, and really nothing's come up with the architecture, but I think you guys know we're proud of what we build, and I think we can make everybody happy on the architecture. I guess, some of the other things that were brought up, mainly about townhomes. I've been developing in Alpharetta for over 35 years, and we've developed all over Atlanta, and I would never think I would be sitting here tearing down a 5-story, 130,000 square foot office building to build townhomes. And townhomes aren't that dense, really, if you look at what they are. I could see, I think apartments were looked at this property twice. I think it is a good use. I do think that there are places that, townhomes may not work. I think, but this has a great streetscape. I think it fits in with the mixed use of Portman. And so you understand, Portman has the property under contract, and we're buying it from them. So that's pretty much why we're doing most of the application. But I think it's very important for the retail that's coming up to have more houses, not only the multifamily that Portman's building, but to have ownership. And I think for Georgia State, I think it's the same way. Other than that, we do agree with the staff conditions, and we have been surprisingly approved by Planning Commission twice with those same conditions. So we would respect your approval. If you have any questions, here, thank you.
Councilman Hypes?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jolly. Over here. Great to see you again. I can only speak personally. You do have a fine reputation for your product here in Alpharetta, and much appreciated that you invest here. The thing that's on my mind is I'm in total agreement with the way Councilman Brady expressed his concerns. And it's all tied to condition number 5, which is architecture shall be substantially similar to the submitted renderings. What I would like, so that despite best intentions by you and best intentions by what we're looking for as a council, is to have some sort of objective criteria to get clarity about what these finishes might look like. I know the Design Review Board does what they do, but I'm not sure what these submitted renderings are that is a condition of this zoning request. I'm not sure if it's the ones I saw that I think those are the ones I want to agree to. What we're looking for is a pedestrian area without a pedestrian product. And I agree with what Councilman Brady said, that I'm not feeling like what I see as the submitted renderings will stand the test of time for Portman's first suburban investment outside of an urban core across the street. So if we, and there's a question here, The question is, if we can reach some agreement with staff and consensus of council about what clarity we have around what the architecture is going to look like. I don't want to invade the DRB's province, but I can't get on board with the way it's written now and what I've seen.
Councilman, I want to make sure that I understand too. Is this?
And there may be a different rendering from which condition number 5 applies. I'm just not sure which rendering is being referenced in condition 5. Do y'all know which one it is?
So you want to, we could label this Exhibit A if that's the one.
This is the rendering.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But
So just put it as shown on Exhibit A.
I want to know what I'm voting for.
Sure.
And I don't know what I'm voting
I know
for.
what you're talking about because there's multiple different pictures. And this is the same.
It's the same footprint, but
Let's just do this way.
Yeah,
Exhibit
I want the
A.
one that looks like a Providence product and not a Pulte product.
yeah. Well,
And that's no offense to Pulte at all.
No.
It's just, it's,
well,
how about a 1980s Pulte product?
well, all these ones that are here, we
Sorry,
built.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, these are projects that we built. We built it, we didn't take pictures of something else. This is what we,
I have nothing more to add. I think you understand where I'm driving at. I want to know what I'm voting for by,
the intention is this exhibit right here.
okay, and thank you.
This has more siding.
And there is a, further down, more mention of the brick and four-sided architecture in that same condition. But I do agree with you on what exhibit, it needs to be clarified.
And I can feel myself flush. I think Pulte makes a great product.
Councilman Brady.
First of all, once again, thank you for your investment in Alpharetta and for bringing a great product. I think it's a compliment to get that reaction, to be honest with you, because we're so used to having a great product from Providence that when I saw that picture, I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, that's kind of the same thing as Councilman Hypes. It looked totally different than anything else you guys have built here. And I just thought it was substandard for what we consider the standards of Providence. So I'm glad we kind of clarified that. I'd go so far to say no siding. I don't think siding is a product that really makes sense. I know it's not in the picture on the top of the exhibit. I'm just happy to kind of see that because that's a big difference to what we saw there in the four-sided. Also like to talk, if you don't mind, I got a couple other questions. One is very thankful that you're creating amenities because I think it's a big deal when we do create a community that it has a sense of community. And having amenities like a pool and activating some green space is really good for a community to get them together, to meet your neighbors and be part of your neighbors. Love the fact you had the private gating kind of coming out. I think these are things that I think we'll be more talking about kind of going forward in the future. So really kind of like what you did there. I lost my train of thought, to be honest. I had a question for you and I kind of lost it.
And we do have a pool, we do have a pool in this development, and we do have open space. We have underground detention, and on top of the detention, we have all these green spaces. She showed 3 of them. If you didn't have underground detention, you wouldn't really have that space. But as you well know, you need enough homes to support amenities to make sure they're not, overbearing to the community. So with 104 units, that's the right size to be able to do the type of community and amenities we like to have. Most of them, in Alpharetta don't have them. The bigger communities, the old ones used to always have it, but a lot of the newer ones don't have them,
So we have some comments before. I mean, we have a lot of people in the community going, what, townhomes. So my question kind of is, you're making an investment. You have made investment by density into townhomes. Who is your buyer? Like, who is that persona? Because we're looking at that, and I think part of this is it lifestyle changes? Because we're used to different generations, right? I bought a house and a big yard, and we kind of work on the yard. What's driving some of these changes?
Well, I think for townhomes, there are different buyers for different builders. Townhomes used to be a price point, that people couldn't afford houses, so they would buy a townhome. Also, we don't look at it that way. We're a lifestyle builder, and so we build, all the lawns are maintained, all the exteriors are maintained, all the roofs get replaced, so they pay higher fees in the community to live there. So when one building's ready to get painted or put a new roof on it, they all get done at one time. Most people don't do it. You don't have to do it. You don't even have to have the landscaping maintained. So we're more of a lifestyle builder. We end up selling, fortunately, more than most builders, maybe 10% above premium for our finish levels. But we really attract a different builder. It is a lifestyle. We have a lot of the stuff downtown has been the lock up and leave builder. We also had, young professionals. We also have a lot of single people, that just lifestyle change. They want to come and cut the grass. They don't want to maintain a yard. They want to come in and leave and go to the restaurant, meet friends or whatever. They don't want to do those things that you end up doing with a yard or maintenance. And so we provide a lot of that stuff in the association.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves?
I'm glad Councilman Brady brought up who's the buyer. I think there are buyers, obviously, in that market. And I think the townhomes are easier to get financed because the land is expensive up here. We're a little bit like beachfront in some of our areas up here in Alpharetta.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a limit on that. And I think what we're all hearing probably around town with everybody saying, wow, there's a lot of townhomes. You know what? There are a lot of townhomes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of townhomes. And I think there's going to be some kind of capacity limit for the demand for a particular product. And I think that's what, I know that I, as a councilwoman, actually struggle with. I don't have a magic 8-ball, so I don't know where that is. So we're playing a guessing game, but don't want to be on the wrong end of that and build too much of one product.
I think Alpharetta's facing the same thing every small community in Atlanta are facing, because Swanee, Duluth, Johns Creek. The benefit of townhomes is there's not big land pieces left. And townhomes can fit things better and work out better than other uses. But I think your staff and your department's done a great job, because everything is unique. You can drive by and look at each townhome, and they just don't all run together. Just about every community we've done has been focused on the architecture, like we just talked about. And that's why we've never built this in Alpharetta. And I think this is why this will be special in Alpharetta, because it varies. It just doesn't look like the streetscape of regular townhomes. So I do think it is going on, but I do think there is only a few opportunities in office buildings, and we don't know what else we could do with it on our side. It's already been looked at from, multifamily and other uses. But I do think, it's like this week, we sold 3 townhomes in Alpharetta this week. And so, we still think it's a great market. We still think it's vested, but if you get over flooded with too many, there's always some, but you need to be different. And I think this is different enough than what hopefully you prove anybody else's. So, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilman DeRito?
Mr. Jolly, I echo my fellow councilmen for thanking you for investing in our city. You do a great job, your company. So, I'm just curious, what do you anticipate? I know it's hard to predict the future here on the pricing model. What's the average price of these townhomes, you think?
Well, what's good about what we're doing is when you have different units in the building, you want to get a diversity of housing type, and you can do that in one building without building 3 or 4 different buildings and try to blend it in at the end, if you know what I'm saying. So the 18-foot units are around 2,100 feet. The 20-foot units, which are in the middle, are about 2,250. And then the units on the end are about 2,500 with an elevator accessibility. So you got a in unit, which is normally your premium unit. You can add an elevator, which is totally different, and it brings a whole different buyers. And then the interior units normally would be a little bit lower price. But I think when we, somewhere, we always say this, and it's always ends up being more, but, we love to be in the high 600s starting out and stay below 700. But, things change and development cost, but we think that's the sweet spot if we can stay in that spot.
And I'll tell you why I asked the question, because I'm seeing, because I keep an eye on the marketplace. My daughter just invested in a townhome. And I'm almost seeing the townhome, the values of the townhome kind of level off because as has been pointed out, we have a lot of new townhomes in the city and a lot of them are turning over and we're starting to see the value of those townhomes actually diminish a little bit because there's such competition in the townhome marketplace. And I throw that out there because that's a concern I have because eventually it'll start eroding into all our homes in Alpharetta where it could push down the value of our homes. So it's such a sensitive balance of, how many townhomes is too many for the city? How many, different components of different housing components are too much? And so, but that that's the way the market works, just got to hope for the best. That's why I asked you because I'm like,
I would tell you though, I mean, we compete against our own houses that we built, in Johns Creek here, and a house 5 years ago is a totally different house built today. The amount of finishes, what you can do, and some people want a new home. They don't want to go fix up an older home, and anything that we build, the price per square foot is going to be higher today than anything that's resale in the area. That's just normal. But there is a big difference. A lot of people do want new homes, and there's between the finish levels, Corian, countertops, lighting, tile. There's these new hardwood floors are unbelievable. I mean, the older townhomes that had wood floors, nobody really cares for that today. They want all these planks and all these different colors. So it's unique what you can do in a house today that you couldn't do in a house that was 5 years ago.
and I know, and I say this almost as advertisement for the great work that our employees have done in previous councils and planning commissions. We built out a city today that we're sitting in tonight that has almost attracted people to invest here, that maintains a high level of values in our homes. And that's what we're trying to, maintain. That's why we ask these questions that we ask, because I think, it's not only the type of homes we approve to get built here, but it's a combination of multi-use areas of the city in today's environment. And it's also maintaining a high level of public safety. Our school systems play a big, and our infrastructure, right? So there's a lot of things that play into this. So it's not just the housing components, but, so I keep an eye on the housing because that's going to be so important to kind of maintain the quality and the level of the community that we live in today. And hopefully, the decisions we make continue to enhance the values of the homes that people have invested in over the next, 5 or 10 years. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question for you. How much are you having to pay for an acre on the
I'm sorry?
property? How much per acre are you paying for the property you're purchasing?
I don't know if I can say that, I'm buying it from Portman, but it's expensive because it's an office building,
You don't know how much you're paying for it?
Not per, I mean, I know what the total price is, but not a per acre price. I haven't done the math.
Well, I'd also just like to add that, Mr.
I'm just trying to establish why it's difficult to build a product other than townhomes.
Yeah, I mean, if there's other options, we would look at it. If there was a way to build single-family houses, I would love to do it because there's such a shortage of single-family in all markets because it's so hard to do. But you got to remember, somebody buying a single-family house that's $800,000 to $1 million, they can about buy anything where they want, and there's so many other places they can buy. And so, but the development costs are the problem, not as much as the land cost today. When you do all this infrastructure, and back a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, it cost $50,000 a lot, just the development cost per lot. I mean, we have neighborhoods over $150,000 to $200,000 a lot just in development costs after the land. And so it's not only the land cost, some of the land is actually cheaper than we paid years ago. It's the development cost, all the infrastructure, all the pipe, paving, none of that stuff's gone down at all. It's actually gone up,
Right, and I just asked because I was trying to get a number, so as we continue to have conversations about a certain product in certain areas,
Right.
it would be helpful that we had data to support.
Well, I would think,
these
obviously, anything that didn't have an asset on it, like a building like this, would be a lot cheaper per acre than what we're paying. Just because this has an asset, income-producing property. It's not only leased up, but, somebody had to buy that and build that as the standard number,
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thanks, sir. Do we have any public comment cards in favor of this item?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item, now's your chance to do so. I see none. Do we have any public comment cards in opposition?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if there's anyone here that would like to speak in opposition, now's your opportunity to do so. I don't see anyone coming forward in public, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening to approve MP-26-01/Z-26-01/CU-26-05/V-26-02 TPG Brookside West, to approve it, including the conditions presented by staff.
Second?
May I ask a clarification before you call for the vote? Would that
Yes, you may.
include-
You're the attorney.
Thank you. Councilman Merkel, would that include the revision to condition 5 to specifically reference Exhibit A instead of the submitted renderings?
Yes.
Thank you.
I thought it was already included.
I just wanted to make sure that that was explicitly included for purposes of the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we had a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Second was Councilman Dorito.
Second, I agree with that as well, that the
Okay.
council brought up.
Any discussion? Councilwoman Reeves?
This does not explicitly say that they have to go through design review board. It does not. It does not specifically say to go through design review board, and I think that this is a good project that going through design review board would be good. So I would like to add that a friendly amendment is to add condition number 28, that this project is reviewed and approved by the design review board.
Do you accept that amendment, friendly amendment?
For clarity, before you answer, I think it would be condition 29.
Pardon? Oh, 29, not 28. Typo.
I think staff could actually be a stronger arm, but if you're insistent, then I would accept 29.
I would agree.
So that's a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Yeah, townhomes, obviously, not everybody's talking about townhomes. You do have some vocal people, and I get that, and I understand it. And some people, I think we tend to think of it as, I don't want to live in a townhome, because I don't. I mean, that's, somebody else is making my life decisions if I wind up in a townhome. So I have the luxury of what the applicant mentioned. The house was built 25 years ago, half an acre, more grass than I like to pay to have cut, leaves that just never seem to stop. Just replaced another one of the 3 air conditioners. That appeal is there. And my adult children in their 20s and 30s, the youngest one is in one and the oldest one's about to get in one. And they're being presented with the same principles of, you don't have to maintain the yard, you don't have to maintain the pool house. It is a turn and go for them. It's their chance to get into home ownership. And frankly, their lifestyles tell them they don't have the time that Dad had to spend all day Saturday in the yard or fixing stuff in the common areas. So I'm getting caught up with the marketplace. I haven't personally, you said you did some research. I haven't. I'm going to. Because I do think that there could be a tipping point. And I think it's important that we keep an eye on what that is. But I think we need to define it, because I think we're working on a lot of feelings. And I'm the same way. I drive by a ton of them. We talk about density. You mentioned Kimball Bridge. Kimball Bridge has a lot of density. We got 2 apartment complexes, we got a townhome community, and I see what it does. And so monitoring that as well is important. The difference in this scenario is we're getting ready to add 2 more lanes to Old Milton Parkway, which is positive to handle the load. Yet again, as Councilman Reeves mentioned, how is that going to hinder people from crossing the street back and forth, and then, supporting the amenities of both sides of the street. So with the fact that we've been working on this for 5 years, and honestly, when we first started, Kathy will tell you, we didn't get much support. It wasn't, well, we tried before that, and then COVID hit, and then after COVID, they came back and said, you know what, maybe we need to relook at this. And I think staff's done an amazing job reaching out to the different developers to say, hey, if we wanted to redo something in here and we wanted to have it live, work, and play, we obviously have the work. We actually apparently have too much work. What does this look like? And so, again, with the Portman project working in hand to some degree with Georgia State, the Providence Group, people working with Georgia State being right across the street, I think this is an example, and it could be a rare example, of a true public-private partnership without the private or the public putting in their money. You mentioned the lane diet. If that was mandatory right now, I would not approve that. Let it grow up and see what it's going to be, and at that point in time, if council sees fit to spend money to enhance or change that experience, let it happen at that point. But I don't think 104 townhomes is going to have that big of an effect on it, and you do get the expanded sidewalks, at least that section right there in front of that project taken care of. So I'm actually pretty excited about this thing. I think it's going to be pretty cool, and I just know that between staff and DRB, they will get the architecture right. Thank you.
Councilman Dorito, you have any comments?
I echo the Mayor Pro Tem's comments. I'm excited about this project as well. It's one component in a lot of hard work by the mayor and the staff and Mayor Pro Tem. I know he's reactive in helping drive this whole redevelopment of this area. And it's exciting to see it kind of come to fruition. I think at the end of the day, when all these pieces of the puzzle come together, we're going to be looking at a very revitalized area of the city that is in dire need of that. And not only that, it'll be very walkable. There'll be more retail, restaurant opportunities, and access to the park that the city has back there with the nice water feature there. It's really going to be something to look back on years to come, and know that everybody sitting up on this dais was at least part of a little piece of making this happen. So I'm excited about it, and I wish the Providence Group, along with Portland, a lot of success, and hope to see it happen sooner than later. So thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves.
I think that we are at, if we're not at that tipping point, we're perilously close to that tipping point on the same product coming again and again. And however, I would be remiss if I did not look at this project and look at the unique aspects of it. I do understand that there's some recreational opportunities back there with the water feature that on land the city owns that goes to Greenway, that it makes it a very unique situation. It's been looked at in total, the whole project, and the fact that Georgia State there is a unique thing, although we have no commitments from Georgia State that they're going to add any additional programming. I hope they do. I do think it's a unique case. I'm glad that Councilman Brady focused on the architecture. I think it's critical that everything is top-notch. But I would say that we don't have a Brookside on every other block, or we'll destroy what we have. I want everything that we already have, or that we decide to build as a council. We say, okay, we're going to approve it and green light something. I want it to have the best chance for success, and that means not overdoing anything. And I think that's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard place to find that line. But this, I'd be silly not to look at it as a global impact on the community, and I do think it's unique for those reasons.
Councilman Hypes.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on this. You know, Alpharetta is really special, and this, to me, is another great example of what makes Alpharetta special. We don't sit back and wait, but rather we lean in and make things happen. Our elected officials up here make things happen. Our community development makes things happen. There's a few of my brethren and sisters up here who have heard me say a number of times, I had my office for 9 years at Brookside 2, and I lived right up the road off of Park Bridge. And, you know, for the better part of 2 decades, Brookside was just a big office park surrounded by a sea of asphalt and ubiquitous 4- and 5-story office buildings that went into decline and further decline, and people moved out, and the foreseeable future for those office buildings was somewhat dim. And we did what Alpharetta does. We looked at something that had some natural resources attached to it, and we're taking seas of asphalt and declining office buildings, and we're turning it into a neighborhood, a freestanding neighborhood, which this product is. This neighborhood has a park that's going to be used. This neighborhood has a college campus that can be developed. This neighborhood's going to have retail and places to live and to work. And you know, Brookside East, which is another Providence group, is going to be a part of that neighborhood. This was an office park that's turning into a neighborhood. And this is what Alpharetta does best, which makes me really proud to live here. And you know, every situation in my mind needs to be looked at for the unique qualities of what it is. If, as Mr. Jolly said, if you're developing raw land, you've got one development cost, but if you're having to tear down an office building and tear up asphalt and put in infrastructure before you ever get back to par where raw land would be, that's a different development cost. And so if to do things that Alpharetta wants to do, to turn an office park into a neighborhood, there's really only a couple of products that you could probably put there, and I completely understand that, which to comments made previously, which makes this a rather unique project. So I very greatly appreciate you all making this another great Providence product, assuming it passes. I don't know how the vote will go, but as always, appreciate you being a part of Alpharetta and making us what we are.
Any other discussion? So I think all of you have made some pretty good points. I don't want to belabor those points. I would like to say, from my perspective, when I'm looking at zoning cases like this, I'm not looking at just the project itself, what type of project it is. I'm looking for neighborhoods. And I think, as it's already been pointed out, this is a great neighborhood environment. There's a lot of great assets to make this a place where people and families want to be. And, you know, I think that's a critical part of any of the decisions we make up here, is what's it going to look like in 30 or 40 years. And I was always skeptical of the impact of architecture until our prices went from an average of $350,000 to about $850,000. Because I understand, going back to the product, I don't really have any objection to townhomes. And I understand there are people here that don't want density and they don't want townhomes. And some of that, I think, is just a reaction to the change that Alpharetta has gone through over the last 10, 15 years. And some of that is responsible from the decisions we make on this dais, and some of that is just the world has changed so much. You know, who would have believed 10 years ago that people were going to sell their mansions in Buckhead because they loved the environment here so much that they were going to buy a 1950s ranch house and tear it down and build their mansion here because it's a safer place with a great community and a lot of amenities here and things like that. I also think there's a lot of projects that are being built in Alpharetta that are 3-story homes, and people assume they're townhomes. A lot of the product that's been built on Thompson Street is townhomes. There's a lot of the newer ones that aren't, because they're single-family homes. It's just because the dirt's so dang expensive to get the amenities and the number of bedrooms they want, they're going up to a 3rd floor, so it looks like a townhome to people, and they're just having to pay to put an elevator in if they're my age. So I think there is some of that, and a lot of that's just communication, and we try to do a better job. But there's only so many things we can do when we are hemmed in by geography. And so that's why we're very thoughtful about where we focus our resources and our decisions on things like this. But once again, it all comes back to, are we creating great neighborhoods that are going to continue to make Alpharetta a great city? It's that balance. Because if we don't provide enough housing, we're also going to make it harder to fill those office buildings back up. And not all of that can be single-family homes, and not all of it can be townhomes. But we've got to be thoughtful as leaders in this organization and this community. How do we balance all of that to keep Alpharetta the great city that it is? So I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate your investments in the city. And with that, we'll see. Let's vote. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. As I mentioned earlier, if you're working from the printed agenda, the alcohol ordinance text amendments has been deferred, so that won't be heard this evening. New business. Pardon? So this is new business, the resolution for the revised employee manual benefits handbook.
A resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, adopting revised employee manual and benefits handbook.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Randall, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. And I could not miss the opportunity to say May the 4th to you all, be with you today. So the next item for your consideration and approval is the updates to the handbook. And the updates are intended to provide clarity, consistency, and an ease of language interpretation throughout the handbook. You receive in your packet the red line version, and most of the updates you will see is concentrated into the communication section of the handbook, which we are incorporating with IT policies in there, which incorporates all of the technology policies related to systems use, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and social media, that they're ever changing. The IT policies are maintained by the IT department, which are the experts in that category, and the updates integrate them to the handbook framework while maintaining them as a separate operational managed policy by IT. Another one of the revisions also to include some updates of the workplace conduct to reinforce respectful workplace and appropriate behaviors, expectations across the organization. Additional revisions relates to the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. That's a federal law that got into effective 2023. We have been obviously abiding by the law, but we just wanted to incorporate to the handbook as we do with the FMLA and some other accommodations. The updates also include a recommendation for a recruitment and retention enhancement by extending the 2 weeks of paid time off, PTO, to all new hires in all positions. Currently, since 2019, we have been providing that to police officers, firefighters, and 911 communications. And this change is intended not only to support equity across the organization, but also to continue to help us to recruit and retain talent at a very tight labor market. It has been, as you can all can look at the new labor market. It's a very tight labor market. And whenever we try to recruit talented individuals, especially in the professional world, so those are incentives that are making or breaking the decision for them to start an organization. They can start with no PTO or with some PTO. And just for a reference, the incentives of 2 weeks of PTO upon hire that we give to public safety, that equates to almost 70% of the incentives that we already been given. So like in 2025, we onboarded 54 employees, and 70% of those, 39 employees, were already receiving that benefit because they are in the public safety. So the majority of the new hires are already getting that. So we are just asking to extend that to all of the other positions to continue to help us with recruitment. Another additional adjustment to PTO is the increase of the annual carry forward balance by a small increase of 2 days. It's in alignment with what surrounding municipalities do. Currently, for employees working a 40 hours a week, they can carry forward 240 hours of PTO to the next year. And we are asking to increase to 256. It's just a modest increase so we can keep up with our competitors' communities. The fiscal impact for this change is, we are estimating high here, it's $14,000 annually, because PTO is owed to the employees upon separation. But the estimate is depending on the number of separations, and it does not impact the pension fund, because the pension fund is still at the 240. We are just making the changes of the employee handbook. Also for your reference, in 2025, we had 40 separations of employment. Out of those, 20 were employees with less than 4 years of tenure, and 14 were with less than 2 years of tenure. So most likely, none of those employees accrue enough to even get to that point of getting close to the maximum. So overall, all of the majority of the other changes are in formatting or operational in nature and do not need any change in existing policy directions. So I will be happy to ask any questions you may have about any of those updates.
Councilman Heights?
Thank you, Director. Just a couple of questions. At the top of page 183, there's a change about adding new positions to pay plan, and the change is all new positions causing increase in the number of approved positions, full-time equivalent in the city's position control must be approved by mayor and council. Are we doing that now, where we
Yes.
approve?
Through the budget process. All of the new positions are included in the budget.
So any change in the budget within a director's budgetary area, if that director is seeking additional money, then I understand that may be a request of council. I didn't understand, the way it's written, I didn't know if this was, are we approving additional money or are we approving a position? All new positions causing an increase, yada, yada, must be approved by mayor and council. And so I'm not trying to wordsmith it, but I just wanted to understand if this is something new that the department heads will be coming to council and say, will you approve this new position for us? I view that as what the director and city administrator does.
This was just to clarify the policy, just to really reiterate that all of the positions has to go through the approval process, through the budget process. With them, it's council and mayor approval.
So to paraphrase it, if in the course of hiring somebody, regardless of what they're doing, if you need more money, you're going to ask us for more money to pay that person. But you're not asking us to approve a particular position. So I'm liaison to Parks and Rec, and if Director Rogers wants to add a new position, which would be new salary to take care of the farm, I'm not expecting Director Rogers to come to council and say, can I appoint somebody to work at the farm?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no, nothing else changed.
Okay,
That
because
continues to be the
I read
same
it that
process.
way, but I wanted to get clarity.
Yes,
The
no, I
only,
appreciate
while I got the floor, the only other thing was, there's a lot of holding our employees to the IT plan, which is separate from the handbook. I didn't see anywhere in here, and I think it would be important for employees to sign something or initial something that they have physically received the IT plan. If you're going to hold them accountable to it, that sort of jumped off the page at me when I was going through this document. But
No, absolutely. And annually, we ask employees to sign the employee handbook every year in January. And after approval of this update, which then incorporates the IT policies, that's our intent, really, to have a separate acknowledgement and also educating employees where they can find them on our SharePoint. That absolutely is going to be the case.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Dorito.
Thank you, Ms. Vandal, for your work on this. And I know there's been a lot of effort put into it because I attempted to go through all the red lines, and there's a lot of removed sections, a lot of new inserted language and stuff. And I got to be quite honest with you. I don't know if I'm ready to vote on this tonight because I didn't have enough time to digest it all and try to understand it all from my perspective because I literally was at a family thing this weekend, and long story short, but if the council is ready to move forward, I'm not going to obviously stop them from doing that. My biggest thing that I focused on, though, was the PTO situation. Can you explain to me what, I know it had to do with the pandemic, but the 2 weeks PTO was put into place for public safety, 2019, 2020, something like that?
Yeah, so in 2019, it was because we started a sign-on bonus for positions that they were hard to fill. That was pre-COVID. That was just purely to help us to continue to recruit. We had dozens of vacancies in police, fire, and especially 911. So it was an incentive that we created also to mirroring what some other municipalities were doing. So they're providing not only initial 2 weeks of PTO upon hire, but also monetary incentive. And the incentive still holds true to this day. And that's how we started. It was really prior even pandemic.
Okay.
And
So I'm just, in the corporate world, which I'm in, PTO is paid time off that is accumulated typically within a position, meaning you have to invest time working for an organization, and you accumulate so many hours on every pay period, and then it accumulates over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand the concept of providing 2 weeks PTO to attract someone to take a job here, because to me, instead of doing that, I think if it's required that we need to incentivize someone to come here, why would we not look at a different option? I feel very uncomfortable handing people 2 weeks of PTO to come here, because what the policy did, I couldn't decipher this from my kind of review of it. It didn't tell me what the parameters of that is, meaning, do they have to be here a year before they get it? Do they have to, or they get it right up front? It sounds like they just get it up front once they accept the position, right?
right.
So if they leave a month or two later, do they take that PTO with them? Like,
No.
But where's the requirements that doesn't let that happen, I guess,
No.
is my concern.
Yes, to clarify for, on the PTO, there are several boundaries, if you will. So this is an incentive, like I said, it's becoming more and more common with other municipalities. And in the words of Councilman Hypes, if we don't just sit and wait, we make things happen. And that's what we're trying to do, to continue to be a strong, competitive workforce in the surrounding municipalities. To answer your question about the PTO, so upon hire, employees receive that on their first paycheck. And we have been doing this for 70% of employees since
When you
2019.
say they receive money?
No, they receive the accrual on
Okay,
their
the
balance.
accrual, okay.
Right. So they cannot, those 2 weeks of PTO, they cannot take any time within the first 3 months of employment, unless if they have an unforeseen circumstances. If they have a medical emergency, so they don't go without pay, so they can use those hours, or if they have already pre-arrangements made that they disclose to us during the interviews. So when they start with that balance of 2 weeks. They cannot take until they complete at least 3 weeks of employment. If they leave those 2 weeks that they were deposited in, not the ones that they have been accruing paycheck by paycheck, it's not payable upon resignation. So if they start this week, they get the 2 weeks, and then in a month they quit, we don't pay that back.
I also did not see the financial impact to the city for this initiative, because it's not free.
So the PTO, so they're not being, when you leave, those hours are not being paid back. So there is not an impact on that. There would be an impact in departments if that time off would cause overtime. Most of the departments that they're not sworn, that they're not minimum staff, when somebody take off, the work is absorbed, so there is not impact on that money. And then the impact of overtime, that has already been happening because we are already providing that PTO to all sworn since 2019. So all of our supervisors, they're trying to work the schedule so it doesn't cause a lot of overtime.
And I appreciate that, but the reality of it is, at least from my perspective, we have to look at it as it is a cost. If someone's going to take 2 weeks off, it's a cost of downtime. It's a cost of maybe getting things done sooner than later that eventually could cost us more money. I just think the fact that there's no budget impact here is concerning to me, because I do think we have to provide for some sort of budget impact for, 550 employees. You're suggesting that we give it to every new employee that comes in as an incentive to come work here. I just question. I'm very uncomfortable with that, because PTO was never, at least in my world, was never intended to be as an incentive or a bonus to come work for an organization. To be giving basically 2 weeks of free PTO or 2 weeks of compensation to someone coming in the door. There might be a better way to do that if that's what we need to do. But the other thing, on the overall changes, do these go through any sort of legal review? Because anytime you touch employees' rules and regulations, policies and stuff, it's subject to scrutiny on any type of lawsuit or anything. So
Yes.
does this go through any law? So has it gone through any?
So the majority of the changes here has been in operational sides and just in the business actions. Every time we have any dispute, we are not changing the terms and conditions of employment besides if we offer a benefit coming in. Every time we have an employment dispute, we work with legal to take a look at the particular policies on our handbook that was on an appeal or on a challenge, and legal gives us advice if we need to make a change to that policy to strengthen them. Otherwise, an undertaking of this size, it will take a lot of funds on the city to go over every single page, whereas we have not been making any substantial changes to the things that we already had. And comprehensively, back in 2019, the handbook was done, a revision by legal in a cover to cover since then.
And, well, I would like to speak about this more offline, but because I don't want to make this a big discussion just about my questions, but I have real reservations, particularly in this area of the policy change. I'd like to understand a little bit better before I vote on it, but if the council wants to, I don't know if there's a deadline to move forward. I would love for this to be tabled to give us ample time to go through this, because there is a lot of changes in here that I would like to kind of digest a little bit better before voting on it, but that's just my opinion.
This is probably because I'm new, partly, but I was glad to hear Councilwoman Dorito say something. I also had something this weekend, and I was not able to, a family thing, and was out of town and wasn't able to look at it. And the reason that not that I have like expertise in it, but when we pass it, that somebody will come back to us and say, you know what, I mean, you guys are making us do blah, blah, blah. Because they always look back and say, well, it's council that did it. It's council that approved it, which is accurate. It would be correct. I didn't even come close to reading every word. And if there is no rush, which I don't know, like it would be absolutely terrific to have a little bit more time to digest it. Not that I would bring something specific, but like I might have a few more questions. I asked you a question on the way in, and it would help me. That might not happen every time because it would look familiar to me the next time you do a revision or an update. And I understand some of this is just language, like the 2023 Act that had to be brought up, in the language. And I understand that, been through that kind of stuff before, but I can't say that I've read it.
Councilman Heights.
Well, hey, fellow council members, I get it. I did try to read through this, and it took a little while. And I think hearing my council members' comments, I mean, I would appreciate having the benefit of their full input on this. I think this might have been well suited for a work session where we could brainstorm a little bit and have a fuller understanding before it got brought for a vote. Maybe, and maybe that's still a possibility, I don't know. But some of the higher level issues here is a lot of human resources has been data driven. And from what I read in here, I saw solutions, but I didn't see the reasons for the solution. So I don't know if it's a solution to a problem or if it's a solution in search of a problem. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how this affects our hiring decisions one way or the other. And much like Council Member Reeves, you and I had a discussion because I didn't know the answer prior to tonight's meeting. I recall when we were addressing public safety compensation, and we were addressing them separately because of the unique requirements placed upon public safety. And one of the bullet points in here is trying to bring everybody in line with some of the incentives that we had previously passed for public safety, which at the time we said a justification for that was because they're a different type of employee. And so we're sort of washing out the justification that we did some of the incentives for in public safety. I'm happy for everybody to whatever we can do within the confines of some budget discussions we're going to hear about here in a little bit. But I understand why some of the other council members would like to reflect on this so that we get a informed vote. I get it. So.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, in the course of me raising my hand, everybody's already answered all my questions are at the same point. And it's not trying to beat up on the presenter. I want to make that a point, understand. Because because I did not realize that the 2 weeks of PTO was not, originally it was public safety. And are we now transitioning that to all employees?
That's the recommendation.
Okay, yeah, I definitely need more time.
Councilman Dorito.
Yeah, real quick, Chris, and I want to echo Mayor, Ms. Randall, I want to echo Mayor Pro Tem's comments. This has nothing to do with the effort you put into this. It's just trying to get it right, you know? And I'll throw out just an example of this. This might be the best recommendation in the world on this PTO thing. But being in the corporate world as long as I've been there, because I'm not that young anymore, and you probably will agree with this. It's almost reflective of what's being presented here tonight in this area. If we were to approve this without parameters and reasons and understanding it better, what's to stop all our employees in the future who have been here or recently joined us or whatever, looking for the same benefit? Because that's what happens. You give it to new people, and the people who've been here, rightfully so, because I would question, like, why don't we get 2 more weeks of PTO? Why are we giving it to just new people? So it's part of my concern. We got to be obviously fair to employees. Every job in the city is different, has different requirements. I'm not a one-size-fits-all guy. And so I just need more time to understand it and justify it before I could support something like this. And I just want to be very transparent to you. So.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that I want to get my terminology correct. I'll look to our city attorney, but would it be to table this and move it to a work session on a date certain?
You don't have to, if a date certain would be a proper motion, you don't have to say table, but
Okay,
pick a
I'd like-
date and.
I'd like to move.
I think Mr. Lagerblum has something.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in if we can before you make the motion. It'll ultimately lead into your motion. But
Okay, sure.
just in response to some of the questions or some of the comments that have been received tonight, certainly no issue in moving this to a future agenda, to a future workshop. Candidly, this is one of the things that Chris and I spotted years and years and years ago when I showed up in Alpharetta, that the process that was required to get the personnel manual changed was simply a single word. If there was simply a simple word that needed to stay in conformance with the law, was an act of the city council. And so for 3 years, I've been asking Chris to put us in a position where we can put ourselves in the proper place for the future, being that we have an actual employee handbook that's adopted once and for all with the city council. And then that we go back to the council when things cost the city money, and that we can actually, as your administrators, we can keep our policy manual in line with the law without having to bring that back to the city council for a vote every time it happens. So that was the concept of tonight. Whether this approves tonight, approves on the 18th, approves on the 1st, approves in July. It really, we're operating today as we've been operating. We'll continue to operate tomorrow morning, no problem. I would encourage you against the 18th meeting just because it is so full. I would request, and I told you I was going to end up in a motion here, that your motion would be to defer this item to the June 1st work session. And at the same time that you defer this item, if you're willing to do it, make a motion to do both of the items in sequence, item A and item B, and then we can just move on to item C, because item A and B need to stay together.
Well, then I make a motion that we defer and move this to a workshop on new business A and B to the June 1st meeting, I think is what I heard.
Can I make a comment?
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think we tentatively have other engagement on June 1st, if you were thinking of doing the Greater North Fulton Chamber trip.
Okay, so June 15th?
June 1st?
First, second, and third is the email I believe I received from Greater North Fulton Change about going to Colorado.
No, that's September 1.
Okay, then
Yeah.
I've got.
I may have been
different.
incorrect. Let me look at our
Go
HR
ahead.
director here real quick. Are you here
It's
June
leading
1?
into Labor Day
I will be in PTO on June 1st, so. You will
So
be-
then Chris has leveraged some of that PTO that we gave her when she started to take some time off on the 18th. So if I could go maybe June 15th, that would be great for both the items.
Yes, I make a motion for June 15th.
Second.
Any discussion? Is this a tabling?
We're deferring it to another date for a work session.
Okay. I'm sorting it out. There's been a confusion. So, are we prepared to take a vote? Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the resolution formalizing administrative updates to the employee manual and benefits. So we're not going to go forward with that now?
A and B were both moved.
Yes, B was also postponed.
Gotcha. So we'll move on to the appointment of Code Enforcement Board member. Ms. Eswine, would you please read the resolution?
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to appoint a member of the Code Enforcement Board in order to fill a vacancy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lagerbloom.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I see my name listed on this on the agenda. I don't know that I was prepared for this one, but I'll be happy to present it. This is a very simple item. This is an item that's brought forward to you to appoint somebody to the Code Enforcement Board. As you know, our Code Enforcement Board consists of 7 members and 2 alternatives. It is a consensus appointment of the City Council, so you all would vote on everybody that's appointed to the Code Enforcement Board. We received interest from Mr. Carlos Campos, who's expressed the desire to serve. I believe we attached a resume. We did, redacted, the clerk did, to the item itself. This in front of you tonight is simply to recommend that you appoint Mr. Campos to our Code Enforcement Board, and I'm happy to, or the clerk is happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Lagerbloom? My only question is, how did Mr. Campos come to your attention?
I'm going to have to look to Grace to.
Oh, well, we received recommendation from Councilmember Dorito.
It came
Okay.
from
Well,
Council.
that's what I was curious. I'm not aware of him before, so I assume somebody had brought him forward.
He approached me, lives in the city, obviously, his wife and 3 children now, got a little infant. Former naval officer, serves his country. His wife is an FBI agent, so very involved in government. He took an interest. And
I do remember your email
submitted
now.
to Mr. Lagerbloom his resume. So if there's ever an open position, we can consider him for mayor. And there was some positions here. He just wants to start trying to get involved with the city. So.
That's great. I appreciate the clarity.
It's finally coming back to me, too. I know I made it sound like I had no clue where this came from, but you're right. Doug sent a very nice email, and I said, yes, we could do this at the next meeting. So that is how it originated.
All right. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the appointment of Carlos Alberto Campos to the Code Enforcement Board.
We have a motion by Councilman Dorito, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak in favor or opposed to Mr. Campos, now's your chance. I do not see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. I look forward to meeting Mr. Campos. So the next item was deferred. Oh, excuse me. Next item is our work session. Is that correct, Kathy?
Mayor and Council, this next item, the Alpharetta Rental Housing Study Update Presentation. It's just a short update. We put the document, it should be in your packet, and of course, it's a draft for you to go through. And the reason that we do this, of course, is we have the comprehensive land use plan. We have the housing policy, too, that states that we should have a goal to maintain a balance between owner-occupied and renter-occupied in Alpharetta, such that at least 68% of the housing stock is owner-occupied compared to the renter. So every couple of years, since 2016, when we put our first study in place, we go through and see What are the trends? Are we meeting that policy? And so there's nothing to vote on, it's just an information to let you know where we are. And if I could bring Jeff Koski up with KB Advisory, he'll give you a quick presentation of the market. And I think, Deanna, do you have the slides?
We can go old school if we need to.
Mayor and Council, it's a pleasure to be with you. Jeff Koski, President and owner of KB Advisory Group. We are a Atlanta-based real estate market analysis and economic development consulting firm. Yeah, can I use this? Yeah, that's a good idea. I brought papers. I'm old enough to know how about
Yeah,
papers.
bring the backup. Do you want to sit here? And you can use this if you want, whichever's easier for you.
I'll stand. All right. There we go. Old school PowerPoint. I used to be a high school teacher, so I used to draw on whiteboards and overheads. No problem. So anyway, real quick, just to give you an update again, as Kathy said, we've been tracking your housing market for about 10 years now. And so this is sorry. We can do this without it, but okay, there we go. So the covers of the 4 reports we've done, going back to 2016, again, the assignment has been to track specifically the tenure mix, as housing analysts call it, the mix between renters and owners, right? And so I remember 10 years ago, Mayor sitting in chambers upstairs, and the issue 10 years ago was that you had a lot of renters moving into your single-family neighborhoods. And that was one of the impetus of this, is that it was an outgrowth of the great financial crisis, and the housing market was in flux, and you had seen a bunch of renters move into your neighborhoods. And that was one of the major issues at the time, is, let's start looking at this as people start to ask to add new rentals. What do we do about the fact that we've got a lot of folks in single-family neighborhoods? Well, through tracking this, I can tell you one thing that we found is that they've begun to come out, or they have come out of the single-family neighborhoods, because you've offered additional rental options in town. So you have fewer renters in your single-family neighborhoods, while you still have actually more more rental units altogether. So we'll talk about that in just a second. The other thing is just a bit of a vocabulary clarification. When we're talking owners and renters, we're not necessarily talking multifamily, single-family townhomes. So it's about the households that are in the homes. And so therefore, this is a bit of a lagging exercise, because the data we have to use is census data. And so we look at census data, which lags, and then we add it to the mix of what we know about the market today. So we're using a mix of data largely based on census data to understand this mix between renters and owners. So the short answer is, oh, good, thank you. The short answer is that this over the 4 years, this is what has turned out, in that we started 10 years ago. You had 64% owner share, which was above the target that you had set at 68. And so now you've come down the last 2 times we've done this, you are holding at target at 68%. So that's the big headline news. I mean, again, that's the number one reason why we've done this, is just to track this, because your comp plan asks y'all to stay up to date on this. So while we're at it, and we'll go to the next slide, we thought we would dig deeper into the census data, really partly to answer that question. Okay, we've seen this mix of rental units in town. Who are the renters, right? You asked the question, who's a buyer of the previous project? So ultimately, that's what we're driving to here. So again, just to go quickly, hitting some of the headlines in the report. The report is 20 pages. There's a lot of detail in the data, but you can see basically one of the big takeaways is that overall your renter share is dropping, which we said before, as your renter households are actually increasing. So you have an absolute number of more renters, but the share of those renters is lower than it was 10 years ago because you're adding ownership positions. You're adding homes in which owners live at a faster pace, right? We've seen, you all have seen a large growth. Next slide. In your housing market, you've added rental units, but you've added ownership at a higher pace. So who are living in these renters? Again, over to the left, you can see that and this is gleaned from some of the data over on the right, but this is probably not a surprise to you, but just to verify, the data is showing us that the renter base has fewer children and fewer larger households. That would make sense. Typically, renters are in smaller households, and in those smaller households, they have fewer children. So we see new rental units have overall relatively very, very few burden, if you will, on the school district, typically. You can see that younger and older professionals are the ones that are heading into the new rental units that you have. Again, it's the older folks, or it's the younger folks looking for a first rung on the housing ladder in Alpharetta, and it's the older folks who are tired of those 1 acre lots, tired of those leaves, and they're moving into renter positions. You can see, so the growth is in the younger, 35 and younger, and 64 and over, and you can see that the mid-career households are more, over the past 5 years, have become more prevalent in your ownership stock. So again, these may be not surprising, but just, again, this is what the data is telling us. Next slide. Looking at incomes, again, kind of the same idea that you have a growth in renters at the lower end of the spectrum, but you also have an even bigger growth of renters at the higher end of the spectrum. And that's typically those older households, right? So you see almost a 10% growth of renter households who earn 6 figures, right? So just, again, thinking about the new renters that you are inviting into the neighborhood when you're building rental product, typically the growth you're seeing are 6-figure households. Again, these are often older folks, probably even with a higher net wealth. We're just looking at incomes. And so what we're seeing overall when we look at demographic data, middle income, so call it 50,000 to 100,000, those households, the number of them are shrinking, right? We have this kind of K-shaped economy, and we have this K-shaped growth in which Alpharetta is attracting younger households because of the new renter product, but you're also attracting a lot of older households with higher incomes. Next slide. And so again, just so you know about the renter, this is again largely focused on now your multifamily product, because you went from 12% of your renter product was single family 10 years ago. Now you're at 5%. So most of your renter product is in multifamily units, if you will. And again, there's very low vacancy. The trends are saying that there's high demand, very low vacancy. The rents are growing, although they've been moderating since 2022. That's a nationwide trend. Most markets we've seen declining rents, but you all are kind of stabilized because the demand is so high. And again, I mentioned that single family renter share has dropped, and you've got a healthy pipeline. You've got about 5 years of supply in the pipeline, in the planned and proposed pipeline. And this is important, kind of looking ahead. What we see is based on what we see in your pipeline, it looks like you would probably stay about even over time if you built what's in the pipeline today. So our forecast would say you'll stick at about that 68-32 renter versus owner distribution. So last slide, just the summary slide, just to say again, I mean, there's a lot of trends we could have pulled out, but just the big picture trends in terms of number of units that you've built. You built a lot of rental units, but you built more ownership units. And so because of that, you've drawn some of the renters out of your single family neighborhoods because they're finding products elsewhere particularly the luxury multifamily that you built, and they get to stay in Alpharetta that way. So that's the big takeaways. Again, there's a lot of data there. If you're into housing data, we got it for you. Happy to take questions.
You also compared in the study, not in the PowerPoint, but in the study, you compared us to the some of the surrounding areas in terms of percentage of rental units. And 68, that's what it says on the comp plan, but that 67, 68% puts us at, or renter percentage of 32, 33% puts us at significantly higher rentals per rent versus owner than some of these surrounding areas that we generally try to compare ourselves with. Like North Fulton is, North Metro, they only have, they have 78% owner occupied. Forsyth is 84% occupied, owner occupied. East Cobb 77, Cherokee 79, North Fulton 73. So even among North Fulton, we at 67% owner occupied, we are lower than the areas that we typically surround ourselves. We have more apartments per owners, or more rental. I will have to be careful about my terminology. We have more rental per owner than our surrounding neighbor areas, correct?
I would say based on what you're reading in that report, to those comparisons, yes, but if those are all to the north. If you look to the south, then it flips. So the renter distribution in Sandy Springs is much higher than it is here. So
I know.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure a
right.
goal is Sandy Springs. No offense,
Well,
Sandy
that's
Springs.
part of the reason why these appear in this report, because these are the ones that we were asked to look at. If you look south, right, your North Fulton peers are, have a higher distribution of renter. That has a lot to do with the jobs that you have here. You have 20 million square feet of office space. This is a job center. Sandy Springs is also a job center. Most of your neighbors do not have anywhere close to the amount of jobs that y'all have in your midst, and so that always drives more rental housing because you've got 20 million square feet of real estate that others don't have, and the jobs that come with those 20 million square feet are looking to be as close to that, often looking to be real close to their jobs, and therefore you see a mix of renters that want to be close to their jobs. So that is kind of the trend that we see. So again, I would say that it is true that the renter mix is less north of you, but that because you have a significant amount of jobs in your city boundaries, it's not surprising that you have a higher renter mix.
It's good information. I think probably at some point, I think we'll be talking about the comprehensive land use plan soon. I think that data is probably something we want to think about in terms of what our community wants for that. But this is great data, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Councilman Dorito?
Thank you for the presentations. It is good information provided to us. I mean, to sum it up, it seems like we're kind of staying within that ratio that the city has tried to hold in place since I first joined council back in 2001 because of the growth, but we're growing single home ownership versus rentals, so that we're kind of staying within that kind of sweet spot of what previous councils have tried to maintain, right? And I've had this discussion several times with community development, looking at like the current environment, and you pointed out we're a business hub, and at least my perspective is we want to maintain us as a very attractive business hub. And one of those things to be able to do that is to provide the various forms of different housing opportunities for different needs of different age groups and that sort of thing. Do you see in other cities an overall ratio, or do you see where cities are planning more proactively to look at, say, districts within a city and saying, in this district, this is where we should put a lot of the rental housing component versus home ownership, and in this other district, kind of put a very low rental ratio there. I just wonder if we should be looking at in this new rental study of, you know, what should we be doing for the future to retain Alpharetta as a regional business hub that it is, and that maintain the success of investing of new companies and attracting new corporations here to continue to fill up the office space up to the 20 million square feet that we have. Because if you look at the abutting cities, whether it be, you know, Roswell with, I think, 6 million square feet of office space, or maybe I'm flipping it, and Johns Creek having 2 million, there's a reason why we're seeing a lot of continuous growth here over the decades. And I asked the question because I'm trying to make sure that we're not stymieing the future growth of the city by not rethinking on how we apply the rental ratio in the city versus kind of one size fits all. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for one thing, I think the market, you know, you don't have to ask me. You can look around and see what the market is, what the market is demanding, right? In terms of jobs, where are new office buildings being built, right? That is only in active districts that have a lot of housing next to the jobs. And that, you know, the office developers who want to build new office will tell you the only way they're building new office is in a dense, urban, active environment. Almost, you know, 99%. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, that, you know, that's why you're seeing your office buildings turn over into mixed use, as you talked about tonight. So the market's telling you that. And I think that, you know, to the extent that you do want to remain a job center, I think you do have to look at your jobs to housing ratio. And typically on a regional basis, that typically plays out to kind of 2 to 1. 2 jobs for every 1 household is kind of a typical ratio. Right now, you're at about 3 to 1. So you've got more jobs than you do housing over that typical ratio. But I would say that puts you in the range, you know. So I think, to me, when people ask me about housing demand, I always say, well, look at jobs, right? If you're growing jobs in your town or in your region, you're creating housing demand. Every new job above and beyond the one that you had yesterday creates, well, two new jobs creates housing demand. And so as long as you're creating jobs, as long as we're creating jobs regionally, and as long as you're continuing to attract jobs here, they're going to want to be in places that are appealing to their workers. And typically that includes some sort of walkability, amenities. Retail is now an amenity. So so you got to have enough density and enough nearness of other things that really create that environment.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Heights?
Appreciate this information. It was actually fascinating.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
You know, I like all the facts and figures. One of the things that really jumped off the page was, you know, we tried to take the pulse on what the residents of the city want, but I saw the numbers of multifamily rental units that were built prior to 2000. Apparently, that was more than half of our existing stock.
Right.
So do any of your prior studies, which go back apparently to 2016, do they have ratios for, say, the year 2000, going back historically when we only had 30,000 residents in the year 2000, but we had a much higher relative number of apartment units relative to 30,000 population? Is there any historical data going back further to see where we've been and where we've progressed to?
The answer is yes. I mean, I may or may not have any particular data point stuck in my head, but you know, I mean, the last 10 years show that, you know, you've decreased your renter share. So I would say that based on that, without knowing any particular piece of data, that yeah, when you were a smaller place and you had all of those apartments built, you were more of a renter type of community. Not by a lot, but you had proportionally more renters than.
Well, I was reading the numbers without knowing, you know, the ownership to renter number, say in the year 2000. But I saw it really jumped off the page at me.
Yeah.
How many apartments we used to have pre-2000,
Right.
And obviously, we were an attractive community that, people weren't fearful about those apartments. They moved here and found a home here and made it a home here. And I'm just curious about where we've been, where we are as a guidepost to where we may want to go.
Yeah, well, and again, I would say that you're trending towards more ownership here. And I would say that the same similar principles applied 30 years ago when all those apartments showed up. Why were they showing up? Because all those jobs were showing up, right? All these apartment buildings that are now in question and, mostly vacant, same deal. People wanted to find a place to live near work. They looked different from back then because in the late 90s, as most of us remember, this idea of mixed uses and putting things close to each other was not the style. But we would say this era of development in which is more walkable and more, more mixed use rather than a single use is more resilient. I would see this style of development sustaining itself over time in a way that what we built 30 years ago didn't last very long, right? The values of those apartments have dropped. Values of those office buildings have gone to zero in some cases. I would say this new way of building mixed uses is a good real estate markets always cycle, right? But if you've only got one use on 50 acres and that cycle goes down, you're sunk on those 50 acres. You're seeing that. If you've got a mix of uses, it can cycle through, and the economic resilience of that 50 acres can sustain itself over those cycles.
Well, it's a source of data I've never seen before on some of these points, and I'll see from Director Cook if she's got the 2016 volume. I've not seen that one. I've seen the two subsequent, and if not, maybe we can make arrangements for me to get my hands on the 2016. So.
Yeah, I'm always ready to talk about data.
All right, thanks.
I'll resonate those same thoughts. I love getting reports and data just to understand what's out there. And you're just getting on a point that I was really going to ask about is when you look at older multifamily, right? That's where most of the concerns were. Where that was public safety, was educational, taxation of our system, was really a generation of concern. And since that period, then we've kind of created a multi-use, which has now changed a little bit of the profile of who is actually renting the product, right? So that we can look at the product, we can look at the inventory. The question is, who is actually, what's that persona of that profile, that person who's actually renting that, to discover a little bit more than that. I'd love to see a little bit more data behind that, the average age, the families, the construct of who's actually in the multifamily generation, because I think we've changed the product a little bit, and it'd be good to see that correlation between the old garden style and the mixed use and who is actually in there. Because I think we're hearing more and more average ages of 54, 55 that are in some of these multifamilies. Before it was a younger family, bigger families and those kind of things. So I'd love to kind of parse that piece out a little bit. Are we doing a good job in the land planning of using the mixed use construct versus the taxation that we had in the garden style?
Right. I mean, I would say that you've got most of that data that you're looking for in your hands, and I would say that, your renter is trending older and more affluent as a general term. The data is showing that's the major shift, is you're seeing older households and more affluent households show up in your rental, and that's in the census data. And again, I think, it has to lag a little bit because, none of us can walk in and ask an apartment leaser, who's renting here. There's fair housing laws against that. So just to be clear, that we didn't do that. We're looking at census data.
There are groups that do surveys and do.
There are surveys.
They're absolutely, that data is out there. So I understand what you're saying, but that data is out there. I know. I can put my hands on that data. And my point there is, I understand you got senior housing in there and you got those kind of pieces in average median income. I'm kind of going more to age and how many people are in the units.
Right, and that's what you got here. That's the census data is telling you that.
I'll keep looking through it, but I was missing that detail in there. So I'm not sure I'm really getting it, but thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves.
Do you have any data on some of these older apartment complexes have been refinanced and taken federal funds and have a certain amount of their units dedicated to Section 8 housing? Do you have any data on that?
Not included here. I mean, that data exists. I haven't pulled it for this piece, but any of the new stuff, any of the new multifamily built in Alpharetta is 100%, private financed. Okay, I mean, yeah, there's no low-income housing tax credit properties being built in Alpharetta, to my knowledge.
Being built.
Right.
Right. But there's other stuff that is already existing.
I would say yes, but I don't have the data right now at my fingertips.
Any other questions? Well, I am grateful for this. I'll also take a moment to thank Councilman Gilvin back in 2014, who lost a lot of 6-1 votes on apartments that were approved back in those days. And I said, we need to have some data, because it wasn't about just the apartments. Apartments are part of a community, and it's all about the neighborhoods. And I had concerns when we approved so many in a short period of time, and Avalon was part of that. And, Avalon's been great. But my concern was people in apartments, and the average may have changed since then, but back when I was doing the research back in 2012, 2014, typical rental in an apartment only stays there for 2 years. They're not vested in your community. And what has made Alpharetta special is people moved here from all over the world, and then when they had the opportunity to take a job transfer somewhere else, they stayed here. They bought homes, they bought condos when condos could actually be built. And so I wanted to have some data, because I thought if you've got people that aren't vested in your community, you're not going to have a stable community. You're not going to have a stable political arena, because people don't care. I lived in apartments for a long time when I was younger, and I couldn't afford to buy a house. And so I know, I didn't vote in those elections, or didn't really care who my mayor was, because I was leaving when my lease was up. So I think this is important data for us to just incorporate with all the other data we collect. And my goal has always been, I want Alpharetta to be the best city in the state of Georgia to raise a family and build a business. Now, there is a conflict on some ratios, like Johns Creek has fewer people in it during the day than they do at night. We don't. We've got a lot more people here during the day, and sometimes that shows up in crime statistics or traffic issues and things like that. But Johns Creek does a great job of what they want to do. But if you want to have a balance with the type of economic climate we have in this city, there's trade-offs. And that's just what we have to make decisions about every day. And I appreciate the fact that we take that seriously, and we spend a lot of time trying to get actual data to support the decisions we're making. That being said, if we have no other questions, thank you. It's a work session. We're not voting on anything. We're just having these conversations in public, because it's your money in your city.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Lagerbloom, do we have to bring up Tom Harris on the budget?
Well, we don't. We could put this off. This is kind of a preview of the fiscal budget that will be working its way through processes in the next several months. So you're not approving anything tonight. You're seeing this for the first time. You can spend as little or as much time with Tom tonight as you'd like.
He's really hoping for a nice, long evening. He's just ready to settle in.
I mean, I made that motion this morning
Motion
at like
for
9
adjournment.
o'clock. So,
This is the big, beautiful budget.
oh, no.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. That is correct. We just released the tentative budget last week, Wednesday on the 29th. And with that, I just got a few slides to try to keep us at a high level in this. The budget document itself is 320 pages. It's a great effort on in the departments and everything, but if you look at that budget book. It's the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association type budget book. So it's got a lot of history of who we are, our millage rates, what we've done, the debt, the bonds, all that stuff. So it's a great document to go through and pour through. And we do a lot of that discussion at the retreat, which helps us as a city. So we really take a good look at where we stand, at the retreat, how did we finish the prior year and all that stuff. So at that point, we're able to, present that budget and at least tonight being the first nights, try to stay at a higher level of what's in it, what's not in it type thing and go from there. So the agenda obviously is a little quick on the budget process and recap, and then some highlights, and then the citywide budget, et cetera, and then ultimately ending with the calendar. The budget process, I just like to show this, that ultimately, it's a lot of people working for, pretty much 3/4 of the year. And one of the things, thanks to really all of our efforts and Councilman Brady, that we really worked along with Chris Lagerbloom to make sure we sort of tidy up our 5-year CIP, capital improvement plan. And last year, if you go through last year's budget document, you'll see that it was in there, the funded and the unfunded portion. And basically, we start right away again in September, December, working with departments. Okay, update all 5 years. And the goal being that hopefully you can just, when you get to the next year, you just roll forward the next CIP list into the capital, into your operating and capital budget. But anyways, and we have the retreat, and then we work with departments on a target budget. It's not zero-based and that kind of concept, but it clearly is going through what they spend their money on last year, last few years, what are some of the pressure points, and we try to establish a reasonable target. It's not something across the board or not by department. It's what some of their issues are. With that said, anything that's a new initiative or a new operating or capital initiative is separated. Most of you know that process. We keep that outside of the budget. We don't bury that into the budget. It is an item for you to decide whether that department gets that operating or initiative. And lastly, as we work in February, March, April, and get the budget done, I want to say that it's really been an effort by Chris since he's been here to make sure that we have a collaborative effort with our department heads. Pretty much, they sit in the room and go over everybody's line item budget to the extent that they want to go to the real detail line item or high level. What is that department, just their base budget, what's affecting them, and they're all encouraged to be there and then get in line. Of course, Kathy usually wins any kind of discussion or argument, but other than that, it's a pretty open process. But
she missed it.
But anyways, so with the budget highlights, obviously, one of the things we always try to do is make sure we're conservative budgeting. A few years back, I think we were really conservative as we went into COVID. We thought things were really going to, wheels were going to fall off. So we were having a lot of fund balance fall to the bottom line because actually the revenues didn't do quite as bad as we thought. So we made those cuts and stuff. And then I think we got a little tighter the last few years. So you'll notice our fund balance that we dropped to the bottom line. It's been a little bit closer to like the 5 million. It was like 10 million during the COVID type years. And so it's tight again. We just need to make sure when we budget, the rating agencies love to see that, at the end of the day, that your revenues come in 2 to 3% better than what you budgeted, and then the expenditures come 2 to 3% less. So on a $100 million general fund budget, 6 million or so that you drop to the bottom line type things, and that funds our capital, or at least a portion of our capital. Anyways, this budget is balanced on a 5.75 millage rate. We talked about this at the retreat, that because you got level debt on all our GO bonds that sort of wrap around each other at least through the 2042 year. It's pretty level at $6.5 to $7 million level, that when we get a value increase, then our debt millage can actually drop because we have an operating and a debt millage rate that's established, and the two of which combine for 5.75 mils. So when we're able to drop a little bit of that debt millage, we move it over to the general fund. Has been the process of increasing slightly the general fund. We try to put that aside for capital. Obviously, it depends on that year's demands, and we'll talk about what some of the demands are this year. But so that moved about $145,000 out of, $180,000 out of the debt service fund, and magic of math, it only generates about $145,000 to the general fund, because just something we all need to know. The floating homestead and your $45,000 homestead does not apply to the to the debt millage side of the debt millage structure. It applies to the operating millage rate. So there's two different digests, so to speak. There's a digest for the debt of the city, and then there's a digest that is for the operations of the city, which includes, after you account for the homestead exemption, the floating homestead removes about $2 billion of taxable value off the tax rolls. So that's why the dollar difference when it comes over to the general fund. But that's me just trying to be smart on Monday night late. And but anyways, we did try to maintain our competitive salary. So we do have the 3% merit in there. We do make some market adjustments we started that a few years ago. Randall has a very robust system with consultant and looking at the cities around us to make sure where we out of alignment. And there's a inside the budget is approximately 2% for general employees, and because of a little bit falling behind in the market, and then some for firefighters and fire engineers. And then public safety, unfortunately, police and E911 were right at market, so there's no adjustments there. So those adjustments, along with the 3%, is included. But that market adjustment, I think, as we could say, has been getting a little bit tighter, a lot closer, because we were out of market a few years ago, and then you guys, through the budget process, have brought us much more in line, so we don't expect that to be, hopefully, not a year-over-year adjustment after we give our 3% merit. So then the next thing, as we talked about at the retreat, obviously, is, and we did at mid-year last year, we were hit with some issues of trying to solve a jail issue in the county. He gets up and walks away. And so therefore, the budget, obviously this year, in the current year, and then next year is trying to fully fund that process. So we had to pick up about, let me see, $800,000 related to the jail, and then about $230,000 for E911. So subsidization, because the E911 we talked about at the retreat as well, the revenues just are, it's $1.50 that we get on the cell phones and the landlines, and that number is just not increasing across the board. And we're probably not unique, and we are unique in a sense that we have us and Milton on that, and Milton's IGA is capped that they just give us their full E911 dollars that they get. So at this time, then the general fund is picking up a subsidy in total now for about $800,000. So we would be looking, hopefully, with Milton down the road, that we could get their share of that, which is about 27% of the calls, about $216,000. But right now, that subsidy without Milton share is, without Milton covering their share, is reflected in the budget. So those are the main things that are driving the budget. M&O growth is very limited. Obviously, some utility expenses and things like that driving it. And then the 2020, if you look at the capital that we're planning on doing in the budget book, and it's also back at the end of this presentation, most of those items were identified in last year's, the first year going forward in a 5-year CIP last year, and then you're rolling it in. So there's no real surprises in what makes up that list. So that's the high-level summary of the budget, so to speak. And then next, we'll just jump into, and this is more of just a reminder sheet of what makes up a $182 million budget. And that budget's about $20 million greater than last year's budget, and primarily driven by T-SPLOST type, finally reconciling how much on T-SPLOST 2, how much revenues we're going to take in as we finalize the last year of T-SPLOST. And we bring in about $10 million into the budget as it relates to T-SPLOST. So that's most of it. And then if you can look there, you got to the right. Well, let's drop to the bottom. There's the pie chart, because we love pie charts. And down at the bottom left, you'll see the positions. There's one reduction in positions, primarily the reorg of the public safety department into the two separate departments, and the John Robinson's movement upstairs as opposed to being down there. So you got elimination of one position as a director in that position. The budget to the right is pretty much the full budget of the 182 million, what makes it up. The general fund is up about 4 million. That's a $107 million budget now. And then you have E911, I mentioned earlier. Our revenues are about 4 million out of that 5 million. And Milton gives us $1 million for that $5.2 million budget. But it is being balanced by an $800,000 transfer from the general fund over to that fund. After that, unless you have questions, you get your hotel motel fund. That's the 8 pennies, and that's where all the dollars come in. Then we distribute to ACVB and to us, et cetera. Down at capital grant funds, the main fund that we generally focus on from a standpoint of being like a sister fund to the general fund is the capital projects fund and the stormwater fund, because they get their dollars from the general fund operations, where T-SPLOS gets theirs from T-SPLOS. So we'll talk in a minute about how of the capital project fund of $8.3 million, $8.6 million, where that's coming from. And after that, you get the debt service fund, like I said, stays level about 6.7 billion. Solid waste fund is up about 4% because of Republic's contract, and we've passed those rates on already through to our residents under the resolution that we got to keep up with that rate structure so that we can pay for that bill. The rest of the internal service funds, we talked about the medical insurance fund the other day at $10 million based on the 8.5% increase in our medical claims, et cetera. So that's where we account for all that activity. And then there's a few fiduciary funds for our retirement reimbursement, health reimbursement fund. So that's it, unless there's big questions, because we try to hone in really. Oh, you got questions, or is that a? Oh, okay.
I was waiting for him to stop talking before I.
Well, I'm trying my best not to let him in, but no, just kidding.
Councilman Hypes.
So, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of preview some of this with you today. Appreciate a city that lets me meet directly with the director to get information. The thing that jumps off the page, for this work session is a couple of things. One is, the really sizable increase of on the capital side, 11 million, of which, having gone through this, that's mostly T-SPLOS, correct?
Correct.
So precise question I have before I get into some broader issues here is on page 7 of your handout, where it has T-SPLOS 1 and T-SPLOS 2, we're not collecting any more money on T-SPLOS 1, correct?
Correct.
So that's just money that had been collected for T-SPLOS 1, but not thus far spent.
Thus far appropriated specifically to a project, right?
So,
even though, let me just follow up on that, even though the original Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 project list was approved by council and everything else, until Pete brings forward generally the bid or the RFP, he doesn't always appropriate the funds. So yes, that's
so
a
that
forward.
we're not collecting any more, but there's unappropriated money. So what I'm asking in this work session is that council be given some sort of framework on how we can collectively decide to best spend $2.24 million. That's T-SPLOS 1, and no more is coming in. We just got to appropriate the money in a way consistent with T-SPLOS rules and regs.
Correct.
That is also best for our city.
Correct, and that's presented in the back. To some of it is identified to go towards Webbridge.
Right.
Webbridge.
So, and I think that's probably something one of the departments can get to us so that we can say, let's do something with this money that's sitting here for the incoming budget. And I also understand that on T-SPLOS 2, we are still collecting on T-SPLOS 2?
Correct.
Yeah.
Through May, yeah.
So there's,
March. Yeah.
There's a sum of money there that, can be dealt with. So what I'm seeing in the budget is just right here in T-SPLOS 1 and 2 on page 7, I'm seeing $19 million for transportation projects. And we're working our way through T-SPLOS 3, which will have an impact of close to $72 million. So you take 19 and 72, so we're looking at $89 million worth of transportation earmarked transportation projects that would qualify for T-SPLOS. Anything else that's capital in this budget is really tight. That doesn't qualify for T-Splost, correct?
Repeat that question.
Anything that doesn't qualify for T-Splost that's not transportation, such as stormwater, such as fleet replacement, we will have some hard choices to make.
Correct.
So ordinarily, our capital fund for the current year, which you have in here at $475,000 in prior years, what's it been in prior years that where we could fund capital in the existing year?
The actual line item, general fund contribution, it's been upwards towards 4, generally around 3 million, and then it dropped down to $1.5 million this past year.
Right.
Now it's at 475,000.
So instead of having $3 to $5 million in flush times, right now this budget has 475 to go into capital projects that are non-transportation related.
Correct. Primarily, that's correct, yes.
And we can see that on all the items that have been, both are included and not included in terms of the choices that we have to make as a council on how we want to prioritize. So it's kind of neat that we got all this transportation money. It's a little daunting, not too bad, but I mean it's something that we got to keep our eye on, I think, during this work session to express how we handle non-transportation capital items, both this year and in future years.
Correct.
Now on the operations side, I'm looking at page 104 from the budget, and it appears elsewhere. Our annual increase in expenses is 4.7%, correct?
Correct. For the operating budget, correct.
So how are we doing revenue-wise to keep up with that 4.7%? Are we making choices along the way to make sure that our revenues keep up with 4.7% annual expense increase for operations?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I don't think I can say no, but yes, we do. And
so now I looked at, and I really want to engage as many folks up here as I can in this. I looked at all the proposals for departments that are down one or more persons. And we can all read the document and see where operationally we'd like to have somebody in this department or that department. I won't name one because I already put my foot in my mouth earlier when I named something, and that's not good. But we don't include those because we're using the money that's available to meet that 4.7% expense increase, correct? If we had more money, we'd put it in there.
Correct, although, yes, some or any new initiatives that recently came up in the last few years, it's obviously the jail and E911. So.
And I want to get to that. So, we may have no choice to make, or we may have choices in the future, but what is the total economic impact of the jail? At one point, I saw 1.98 million. Another point, I saw 2.5 million. What is the impact in this budget of costs for the jail personnel and non-personnel related?
It's 2.5 million.
2.5. And, I kind of looked at you on the E911. The E911 issue, and it's on the back page of your handout here, it's more of a $500,000, not 200,000. Our subsidy is 500-some thousand.
Correct. The total subsidy is 800, of which we're picking up that 800, hoping that down the road we can negotiate for them to pick up their 226,000.
So if it were to be 800 and it was 2.5, we included in that 4.7% annual increase of expenses is $3.3 million. If you add
yes,
2.5.
It's in there in the expenses, but as far as the incremental pieces, we already had the budget was amended to include 1.7 million out of the 2.5 needed for the jail. And then, so you have that $800,000 nut there. That's in the 4.7 along with the additional 230,000 for the E911.
So, you know, I say all the time, I got 3 jobs as a councilman. You know, I make land use decisions, I do others, and I try to vote best I can for our residents to set priorities through what, you know, what's in the budget. And so we got 15 people at the jail. That makes up the bulk of the cost on the jail, the personnel costs. And those 15 additional people are included in the 488, but they were added mid-year last year. We started out the year previously at 473. We didn't start at 488. So we're not really down 1. We're actually up 15 in terms of our increase in employees from where we started the previous
From original
fiscal year.
budget,
Yes.
correct. Yep, yep.
So that is
Not
the-
amended budget,
Yeah,
correct.
so that is the impact of the jail. And so the impact of the jail is $2.5 million. E911's got to get figured out. That's another, you know, $800,000 or $590,000, depending on how you look at it. And through it all, we've got like 2 new initiatives of change on the operating budget, and everything else is just more of the same. And we've got a lot of wants across the board, and I'm trying to figure out, and will be over the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, you know, how do I best serve the city, all things considered. But those numbers, that's where the biggest impacts are.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so I know it's written in there, but it's written all over the place. It doesn't say in one place. This is where the impact is on that 4.7% increase in our expenses.
Correct. I'll agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Must have done a great job.
Any other details, or we're good, Nick?
Don't let it go to your head. So this was also.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the general fund is, the next page is after that. And we'll put that through AI if you'd like, and we could get an analysis on that. But that's it, and then, obviously, there's the operating and capital initiatives, and you'll see there the capital program. That's in your package, is in there. I think Chris's intent is the next 2 weeks. The next workshop is the 18th. Am I getting my brain's dates right? 18th? And that's what we'll dive into. So if there's any questions before that. I mean, there's obviously more slides here, but it's up to you all whether you want to just, that was the summary right there that we just talked about. But yeah. Questions?
Keep your fingers crossed behind your back. You don't have.
What's that?
Looks like your fingers are crossed. We're all set.
And then, obviously, the calendar is at the end, too. You can see the calendar on the dates that we're trying to get it approved through first to public and second and third hearings.
Councilwoman Reeves.
I know how delightful it is to get the tax numbers from our county folks down there. So how firm are you on your numbers from them?
As I am every year.
Dart and a dartboard.
Yeah, I think we feel pretty good about what we have. We'd be, hopefully we're a little bit more surprised, but when you get into doing this many years, it's really, you'd be off small percents probably, and maybe, and I'm not saying a million's good.
And you're not all
But you're not.
property taxes anyway, so you're not all property tax. You have a number of
Correct,
buckets that are
correct, 'cause we're
revenue
diversified of
sources.
a lot of the revenue sources. Certainly, it's our number one revenue source, and we'd like to get it close, and this year's estimate that we did in the budget is right on about what we're going to collect this year, 2026. So we'd like to have a little more gap than that, because it's that one revenue source. If you don't get it, if you don't get the gap and the other line items, then you're not going to have a carry forward fund balance. Back to our point again, you're not going to have it, because that represents such a significant portion of your budget. But to your question, we'll probably get the digest sometimes right in the middle of voting on
Right.
the budget. But I think only 1 year has it been significant enough where we're like, hey, you know,
Hold the
back in
horses.
August, told you guys what about, and mid-year readjusted. For the most part, it's on the positive side, hopefully, and we're okay.
I want to thank you for all the work that's gone into this and all of the staff. And I appreciate what Councilman Hypes has said. We've got some issues that we're going to have to ultimately work out because we have the jail now and we have capital wants that are probably needs. So, you know, we're going to have to figure it out somehow. But to the end that this is put together and keeps the millage rate the same and still accomplishes all the things that it does accomplish, I really appreciate it.
I think that's a comment to all the directors and the administrator as well, trying to make sure we get it all in for what we got. And sometimes you have other priorities that are just right now the lead priorities. You know.
Well, since we're talking about the budget, I'd like to at least broach the topic that most, if not all, of our local representatives in the legislature tried to take away the opportunity for property taxes. And look, I pay property taxes. I don't like it any more than anybody else does. But the way they manage that process is absurd. And I want our council and I want our public to know the risk that our legislators put us in with what they tried to do. They're talking about get rid of property taxes without asking any of the mayors or elected officials of how we're going to pay police and fire. I won't even tell you some of the knuckleheads, you know, oh, y'all spend too much money now. Oh, really? Where do you see that? Look at what we just went through. We're running a tight budget. We've got a great city here, and we do a great job. But it comes at a cost. And I'm not saying they shouldn't try to reduce property taxes, but I don't give a damn who they are and who they're representing. If they're going to try to drastically change not just Alpharetta, but the municipalities in the state of Georgia, they need to come together with the people that are actually doing the work and setting the budgets and doing all of this stuff and sit down with us and figure out how we do it in a way that makes sense. It's just, I'm still burning from it. And you know, it's a good thing their elections aren't tomorrow, because I damn sure wouldn't be voting for them. And I can't believe they did the silly stuff they did. And I want us to be aware, they're going to do it again next year. It's not if, it's what. So we need to have that on our radar as well. Katie Reeves.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a wild legislative session. But speaking of the legislators, I do think that when we look at this budget, we do need to think about what it is that we might need addressed from a legislative perspective, and the 911 is probably one of them. And I really think that this is a perfect budget to show them the impact that we're having. And they may tell us just to go back and negotiate with Milton, but that neither one of us are going to be able to make the, really have the cost necessary to provide the services that we think need to be provided. So maybe if we give our legislators a nice list of things that they can do and focus on that would be helpful, then maybe that would be something we could do. Give them a task list.
Well, I tried that last year, and our local legislator told me that was his top priority, and he was going to get that done for us. I said, great, that's something that would be very helpful if you passed the 911 bill that he had talked about. And it didn't happen.
So let's just get a nice agreed upon, voted on legislative objective for ourselves in the fall, in September or October, when we can gather ourselves together, perhaps with the other cities, and say, let's get ourselves together and work together. You guys do a great job of that. I mean, I know that you mayors meet often, and I think I would love to see us vote on legislative objectives and march down there.
Great idea. We do have a North Fulton Municipal Association meeting coming up. It's past the deadline to submitting an agenda item, but that doesn't stop me from bringing up the topic and asking that at our next meeting. Absolutely. So that's a great idea. I'm glad you thought of that. Anything else about the budget? Tom?
Good.
Council members? All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
So, next item is public comment. We have no public. I hope they're not going to comment. Reports, do we have any reports this evening? Councilwoman Reeves.
I had a couple of really fun things. I had a community meeting last week and had it over in the workroom, and we had a nice crowd. I think it was about 30 people, and Councilman Dorito was there and added some, and Director Sezevich was there, and Pete did a great job, as he always does. And I even gave them like 20 minutes to just complain about traffic. So how about that? And there was a lot of them in the Webbridge Road area. So it went really well. I was really, really pleased. And this morning I talked to Warm, the Windward area retired men, and John was there. And it was really helpful to have somebody who has more experience and could fill in some of the gaps that I had, because I'm relatively new. But great group of people, and gosh, we have so much going on in Alpharetta over the next couple months. The comprehensive land use plan, the budget, the North Point projects coming forward. We just have a lot going on, and to the extent that we can do our very best to get the communication out, let's get it out. I think our community is going to be very overwhelmed, the T-SPLOS list, but any way that any of us can think of helping each other get the word out, you know, let's help each other. I'm here to help whenever you need it.
Any other reports? Mr. Lagerblum, do we require an executive session?
We do. Litigation is the topic tonight.
Motion to recess to executive session.
We have a motion by Councilman Hypes. Is that Councilman Dorito? Second. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Please vote yes. And we are recessed for a few minutes. We'll be back soon.
Bail on you.
Okay.
Yeah, 71%. Not bad at all from dead.
Second.